we will be speaking to Michael Hunter again from the local branch of the Bible Society. Michael is already in the studio, and I thought I would use this opportunity just before 11 just to ask him one question, and that's about the Bible and churches in China. Look, what's prompted it, Michael, is I've read somewhere or seen some news report that there's been a bit of a crackdown on the activities of the church and the distribution of Bibles in China. I'm just wondering whether you can sort of confirm those rumours or deny them.
Well, we in the Australian Bible Society have been very concerned about it, and I took the trouble to talk to number 2 in Australia 2 weeks ago, and he said that from the Australian perspective, we haven't had any diminution of the supply of Bibles from Amity Press, so we're distributing them around the world, and that's still going ahead. No sign of slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
There are 2 churches in Christian sets of churches in China. There's the normal churches and there's the underground church.
Yeah.
In the normal churches registered by the communists, there's about 60 million people.
So they have to be licensed?
Well, the party wants to know who's going where and what's doing. They're very watchful.
Yeah.
And they actually attend church services.
Oh, government sort of inspectors.
Inspectors, and they just sit up the back and they get involved, but they have to report back at what the churches are doing.
Mm.
The one that's being cracked down is the underground church. And there's probably at least 60 million, which brings the total population of Christians in China today to well over 120 million people.
Wow.
Makes it the biggest Christian country in the world. We must just not deny the fact. The rules the communists gave to Amity Press was 60% of all Bibles and production has to stay in China.
Mm.
I know at the moment they have 26 trucks full-time delivering Bibles around China. I've been out with one of them, and it's absolutely amazing to see truckload after truckload of Bibles going out into the country villages and the towns, and China's such a big place.
Mm.
And I think the new Premier is worried about the underground church.
So that it's a crackdown not so much on the 60 million who attend the open registered churches. It's what is the underground church?
I don't know what they call it, but everyone knows about it and it exists. I tried to go to a meeting and they said, please don't, you look like you're not a Chinese, and you'd stand out like a sore thumb, and the moment you leave we'll have the inquiries back in asking us all the hard questions. What are we doing?
Yeah.
And so that the church movement, it's interesting that India also has the same problem. Their churches are now families meeting in homes, and they're getting inquiries from the government. Is this a political organisation? Is this an underground movement? And both countries are very concerned about that.
So the government's more concerned that these home groups, as we would call them, are not so much having a Bible study and deepening their sort of knowledge and relationship with God. They're more worried about the political dissent that might be.
They're concerned that something might be happening that they're not in control. And we've seen the revolution that brought Mao Zedong in, and how paranoid they become about controlling everything. They're concerned that they don't have control on the underground churches. The patriotic church they're very happy with. At government expense, they've just finished reconditioning and refurbishing the Shanghai Cathedral. Now this is a magnificent cathedral right in the middle of the Bund, the downtown of Shanghai. And that was wrecked by the Red Guards.
Okay, back in the Cultural Revolution.
Back in the Cultural Revolution, totally. And it's now been fully rebuilt, and it's a beautiful operating cathedral again today, Christian cathedral. And who paid for it? The government, the communists. So, you can't say they're totally against Christianity.
No.
Christianity is alive and well in China, but it has to be in the approved churches.
They want to control it.
They
want to control the sort of organisation of it.
In China they have a difficulty with Roman Catholics because they say the Pope's the head, and the Chinese say, no, we are the head. If you have another head, you don't stay in this town. They're very, very like that. But the united Christians across the board, all shapes and sizes, are welcome in China, but they have to acknowledge that the Chinese are have their own head.
So sort of mixed messages that you're getting from China, really, isn't it?
It's such a big country, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, yeah. So is it something that the Bible Society are concerned about, or just sort of keeping a watching brief?
We are concerned about it, particularly as Amity Press is the world's biggest producer of Bibles, and we don't want them to stop. We want them to keep going. 1 million Bibles a month they have the capacity for, and it's
no other printing press could do that.
Nothing in the world can keep up with it. Zondover and the American ones are looking on with envy at the orders that they're getting and their ability to produce quality Bibles. The standard is just terrific.
Some of the Bibles I've got at home, or listeners will have at home, would they have been printed by Amity?
Yes. If you have a look at about page 3 or 4, right from the front, you'll find down in the bottom it'll just say printed in China.
Right.
That's all it says, and that means it came from Amity Press.
We're talking to Michael Hunter from the Central Coast branch of the Bible Society this morning, the work of the Bible Society and what's happening over there in China. But we now want to sort of go west, and we're going to talk about Africa, because you were telling me off air, Michael, that yourself and Leslie, your wife, you went to Africa a couple of years ago with the Bible Society. What were you doing there?
We had the opportunity to go over and when some Bibles were going over and distribute them and go to a crusades. We stayed with a minister, lived in the house with them. There were 9 in the house sleeping on the floors, and every meal was the same. Breakfast, dinner or tea, sadsa, which is just, after a while, it just goes like concrete in your stomach and you don't feel hungry. So have that each meal and it's great, but they're a very poor country now.
Yeah.
And
which is such a shame, because as you were telling us last week, that they were known at one time as the breadbasket of Africa.
Rhodesia, southern Rhodesia is what Zimbabwe is now. We enjoyed the trip. We enjoyed the opportunity to live with the locals and sit in the back of the utility and travel 300 kilometres across the countryside to go to a crusade. We saw people with so little, and yet they'd still offer you to come and have lunch with them and share the little that they had. And we'll never forget the smiles on their faces.
Humbling, really, isn't it? That happens, yeah.
They're so happy, and at the drop of a hat they'll sing and dance, and it's a shot in the arm for us. Yeah. We thought we were going to help them, but I think they helped us more.
Yeah. And what is the sort of state of Christianity in Zimbabwe?
Well, Christianity is the basic church. Something 80% of the people would say they are Christians, probably higher than that, and they're just starving for the gospel. And when you see the smile on a person's face and you give them the Bible, you think this was worth coming all this way over here just for that one. And when you do that again and again and again in an afternoon or the evening, and they give themselves to they want to follow Jesus, they want to know more about it, and the thirst is just amazing.
So they're all members of local churches, but they don't have the resources that we have in our local churches.
We met a lot of ministers, or pastors as they call them. They're not paid, so they have a job. So we met one guy, he sold photocopy paper, another one sold kitchen utensils. That's their job. And then at the weekend they'd look after their Christian people. Sometimes they'd have 30 or 40, sometimes 60 in their church. And we met one guy, there were 27 in his church, and he didn't have a Bible. Wow. How can you preach and lead a church like that? You should have seen the joy on his face when we gave him his own Bible in his language.
So the pastor didn't have a Bible.
The pastor didn't have a Bible. And so there are many languages, so we gave him a Bible in Shona, which is the main language over there. And Ndebele is another language that we had Bibles all printed and ready to give out, and English. And it was interesting, everyone wanted if you're under 30 years of age, you wanted an English one.
Yeah.
And if you're a bit over, you wanted the home tongue, the Shona one. And a lot of the people liked the King James version. Okay. And we asked them, why do you want the King James? Why? Yeah. And they said, that's the real Bible. Isn't that lovely? Isn't that lovely?
Well, yeah. I mean, for me, some things have to be in that language, like the 23rd Psalm, I think, is so rich in the King James Version. But it is hard going, the King James Version, isn't
it? And that's what they want.
Yeah.
So we had Shona Bibles in the NIV and Shona in King James.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing.
They all wanted King James.
And the older people wanted the King James. And it's just so... And the joy on the face. And we gave Bibles to the leaders of each of the groups. and we had a combined meeting at the end, and each minister or pastor was able to take away 6, 8, 10 Bibles for their church. And the chap that had 60 in his people, well, he got 8 Bibles.
Yeah, overjoyed.
So that was just unbelievable to him.
Yeah.
And they are so instantaneously, and they don't mind talking about Christianity in the streets.
Not embarrassed about it.
Not at all. It's the life. They understand God. We met people who were seriously worshipping their ancestors. Ancestor worship is still very high, and witchcraft. We had a long chat with one guy, and he was so interesting. His faith was fantastic. And we said, "How long have you been a Christian?" He said, "About 10 years. "And what were you before that?" He said, "Oh, Mum was a witch doctor."
Wow.
She still is.
Yeah.
Mum is a witch doctor. And when people get sick, they invite her to come round and make it better.
It's a bit of a joke for us over here, witch doctors, but it sounds as if it's very real.
Oh, very real.
Yeah.
Very real and active.
Yeah.
And the younger people want to get away from that.
Yeah.
And so some of the Bibles we had were on little cassettes, solar powered, and they could listen in their own language to their own Bible in the middle of a paddock and have it retranslated. And of course nowadays they're all getting the U version, YOU version app on their iPhones, and so they can pull up the Bible on their iPhone. So they've got as many iPhones as we have, but they can read the Bible now. But like all of us, a book takes a lot of beating.
They want to underline bits and write things in the margins.
It takes a lot of beating, a real book.
We're talking to Michael from the Central Coast branch of the Bible Society. He was telling us about his trip to Zimbabwe, he and his wife, in 2013. But you're hoping to go back very soon, I think, aren't you, Michael?
Well, there's a mission, the next big mission over there being planned by Africa Enterprise is going to be to the University of Zimbabwe in Harare.
That's probably the biggest university in the country, is it?
It is the university, and 17,000 students. This is the first time we've ever had a crusade at the university. And so we are hoping that the lecturers and the cleaners, the staff, whoever, will come, and the aim at the moment is to provide each of those people that wants one the Word of God.
This is another Amity Press.
Oh yes, and we've looked into the opportunity of providing Bibles, but it's way beyond the money we can provide. So the decision's been made between ourselves and the Bible Society in Australia to provide the Gospel of St. Mark.
Right.
And we're getting thousands of them printed. And the Bible Society said that they will contribute to this campaign 5,000 Gospels. And we've been conducting for 4 weeks on the Central Coast an outreach opportunity for people to contribute to getting these Gospels of St. Mark printed. They're going to be printed by Amity and transported to South Africa, and then from South Africa up into Zimbabwe. And the mission is from the 5th to the 16th of September. And the bishop running it is Bishop Guy McCure. He's the CEO of Africa Enterprise in Zimbabwe. And he's just so switched on. He's terrific to hear. He's even better than the bishop who spoke at the wedding in London.
Michael Curry,
Well,
he was good, wasn't
he was terrific. Well, this Bishop McCure will put him into a shade.
Right.
He is so dynamic and so appealing, and I could listen to him all day. He's terrific.
So look, if I hear you right, Michael, there are 19,000 people that are going to be at this event. The Bible Society nationally said we'll give 5,000.
5,000.
So that's a shortfall of 12, isn't it?
12,000 Gospels.
Gospels
yes.
of St. Mark.
So we've got to empty our pockets and do the best we can. We're going to have the last major function is going to be this Sunday coming at the Terrigal Uniting Church.
Right.
That's the church.
That's the one on Terrigal Drive,
when you're going up the hill, it's got the signboard on the left that everyone reads that signboard. And we're very lucky. We've got some speakers coming. One of them is Ben Campbell. He's the Africa Enterprise CEO for Australia. So he's the boss.
The top man.
The top man. And we've got Sam Collins from the Bible Society coming. He's the New South Wales Churches representative. And the third one is a guy called Tumani Rusundi, who is from the Congo, and he was in Zimbabwe this month.
Ah,
So he's just arrived.
so he got, so not just local knowledge, but local recent knowledge.
Yeah, recent knowledge,
Yeah.
and we'll be talking about not what happened when we were there, but also what's happening today in Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
And there'll be presentation of the previous crusades and the current crusade, and what we're going to do in our involvement to help the Africa Enterprise Crusade to the University of
To
Zimbabwe.
make up this shortfall of 12,000 gospels.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
that's our aim.
Yeah.
And you've just got to think, these are the young students who are going to be next year's leaders. And if we can affect and help them to be Christians, the whole of the history of the country is going to change.
There'll be doctors, lawyers, politicians,
There are
administrators.
11 faculties in the university.
Yeah.
It's held in high regard, and these are the educated people who are going to be the leaders.
Very
And
influential.
Here we have the opportunity to give them the gospel at a very impressive age.
Yeah.
It's just an opportunity. We could change history
Yeah.
with this
Fantastic.
campaign. It would be fantastic
To be part of it.
to be part of it.
Now look, we'll mention the date and the venue again in a moment. It's a talk by the Bible Society and all those people that Michael's mentioned. There will be a free will offering. If people are unable to give, they can still come along and enjoy the wonderful afternoon tea and the speakers, of course.
Of course, yes. And
And pray. Prayer is always good.
the two things we've been mentioning to everyone that are needed for the crusade is prayer,
Yeah.
and there are envelopes that says Bibles for Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Put whatever you want to in it.
Yeah.
If it's $5 and you buy 2 Testaments, hey, that's terrific.
Yeah.
And the more of those that we can get up to into the thousands.
Yeah.
But it's a great afternoon tea, and the opportunity to talk to these people in a one-to-one, ask them the questions.
Yeah.
You know, do you think this is worthwhile, or how are you going to get the Bibles there? And you know,
Yeah. And if you've got somebody who's just been in Zimbabwe this month, it'll be really interesting to hear from somebody like that about the upheaval that's taking place in Zimbabwe with the resignation of, what was it, Robert Mugabe. They've now got a new Prime Minister. It does seem a time of change. It's as if God is shaking the whole country up for some reason.
we've got a wonderful opportunity because he's a Christian, and
This is a new Prime
the
Minister.
new Prime Minister is a Christian, and he's supporting. And the elections for the new Parliament will be in the end of August, and this crusade is timed to be the following week at the university. So it'll be in Harare, right beside the Parliament, at the university. Everyone will be talking about the elections. This is going to be a really hot period in Zimbabwe this year. And we have the opportunity, our finger in the pie, to do something about it.
And when you mention all these various strands all coming together, you do see perhaps the hand of God in the resignation of Mugabe, the elections, the conversion of the new Prime Minister to Christianity, this crusade that's taking place. You can see a greater power behind it all.
It's amazing. It is amazing. And the crusade's being run by the combined Christian churches of Africa.
No denominations arguments. Everyone's behind it.
Everyone's behind it. There'll be priests and bishops and pastors and laymen all pulling together. It's a big committee, and they are working together. It's you just call themselves Christians.
Exactly.
Doesn't matter what
Absolutely.
denomination.
So look, it's a terribly uniting church. It's this Sunday. It starts at 2:30.
Yes.
Gonna
Only
be
a couple of hours, and afternoon tea. You'll be able to have a
afternoon
chat.
tea. And if you feel moved, if God prompts you to make a donation, that's fine. If He doesn't, that's fine as well. Just go along and learn about it. It sounds like a really... they can meet you there, Michael. You'll be hosting it, will you?
Yes, I'll be speaking at it, and my wife Leslie's going to lead one of the prayers.
Yeah, that sounds really great. I shall certainly be there. So that's this Sunday afternoon, sorted out for our listeners. We'll all be at Terrell Uniting Church, learning about this great crusade and the opportunity we have to make a difference in a country that's suffered more than it deserved over the years.
It's a wonderful country.
People
it
are
is
lovely.
wonderful.
Yeah. And you're listening to 94.9 Rhema Central Coast. Thanks to Michael for coming in and telling us all about that great work that the Bible Society doing, not just in Zimbabwe, but around the world. It was good to get that sort of first-hand sort of background to it all. That was really great.